for the next minute or so. We start in the name of Allah, Bismillah. We welcome our brothers and sisters, both Muslims and non-Muslims, to our Muslim Chaplaincy Islamic Seminar Series. The Muslim Chaplaincy holds one seminar a month, and this is sadly our last seminar for this semester. However, we've had great success in these seminars, and we look forward to having them more in the future. So we thank you for your continuing support, and we ask you to continue to support us for the next coming semesters, etc. Now, the first seminar was about Quran and women, about how many women in the Quran held very strong roles, and they were role models for us. The second was about Sharia, the laws of Sharia, Islamic law, and Sharia phobia. And again, this talked about how Sharia establishes justice and is not portrayed correctly in the media. This is actually a very special seminar about the Adab al-Ikhtilaf, which is basically the Islamic etiquette of discrepancy. I cannot do justice to an intro to the subject. I'll let Imam Hendi talk about it, inshallah, in a couple of minutes. But I want to introduce Imam Hendi. For those of you who don't know, he's the Muslim chaplain for Georgetown University, the first full-time imam to be hired for a university, and first paid full-time imam to be hired to university. A very strong role. He's actually a leader and scholar in fiqh, which is Islamic jurisprudence, and he is on the Islamic Fiqh Council of North America, which is again the Islamic Jurisprudence Council for North America.
Do you have to do that?
I'm sorry.
You don't need to. I'm just Yahya. That's it.
Okay, Yahya Hendi.
Yeah, that's it.
He'll give us a presentation, and he wants you guys to ask the hardest questions. He's ready for them. So without further ado, I'm Hendi.
You don't need to do that. My friends, because of my voice and it's a tough week, can those in the back come as close as you could? Abdul Aziz, you don't need to run away from me. I have no stick. I have no stick here for whip, I promise you. لن أقول العصا لمن عصى. Unless you feel you want to run away from me, and that's why you are sitting in the back. So be as close as possible, please. Please help me. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I expected a smaller crowd for tonight because of Thanksgiving, traveling, and I thought you would have much more fun to do than to be with Yahya tonight. So it's your bad luck or my bad luck, I don't know. We have chosen this topic to address because of its importance. We see human beings, but in this case, let me focus on Muslims in this particular case. We seem to master the art of disagreeing. I don't know why. Is this a human nature? Maybe. Is this something related to our culture? Maybe. I don't know. But my hope, this is why I'll start here, my hope that by the end of the 2 hours, we can, write that down, memorize it, we can agree to disagree without being disagreeable. We can agree to disagree without being disagreeable. So this is why you have these two terms here. Khilaf and ikhtilaf. We can do this. We can disagree on interpretations without becoming enemies. We may see things differently. We may interpret things differently. Whether you are Shia or Sunnah, whether you are Hanafi or Shafi'i, whether you are literalist or seem to use your intellectual abilities, whether you are very textual or not, we have different approaches to the subject. At the end of the day, no matter what we do, we have to agree that it is natural to disagree without becoming enemies. I say this because so many communities have become so violent. The moment they disagree, on the text. This is not really unique to Islam. If you look into the history of Christianity, God help us, Catholics within Catholics, Protestant Catholic, Protestant Orthodox, a lot of stuff. Jewish too, Muslim too. So this seems to be a human nature. In the case of Islam, and I want to focus on the case of on Islam because this is my expertise in so many ways, shades and forms. So I hope you keep that in mind. The subject is big, is too wide, too vast. One cannot really cover in an hour or two. Usually I walk around, as you know, and give a lot of jokes. I will not do that today. I'll be very serious. Not to my habit. I don't know why. Maybe I did not have my dinner yet. That's why. So let's move with the topic. The Quran makes it very clear from its inception that there are people who have used their religions to create sects and to create divisions between them. In the ayah in the Quran, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ فَرَّقُوا دِينَهُمْ وَكَانُوا شِيَعًا لَسْتَ مِنْهُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ إِنَّمَا أَمْرُهُمْ إِلَى اللَّهِ ثُمَّ يُنَبِّئُهُم بِمَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. Addressing the Prophet himself, Prophet Muhammad, upon him be peace, that there are people within his own community, meaning within the community of Islam, that will come to use their religion to separate between each other. In another verse in the Quran, in Surah Al Imran, ayah 103, the Quran warns us from disagreeing to a point of becoming enemies. The Quran says, and hold on to the rope of God all together and be not divided. And remember the favors of God unto you when you were enemies and God brought your hearts together. Quite very important. And you became brethren. So the Quran tells us, warns us not to be of those who have disagreed and became enemies. There is a way for us to work with each other. Looking into the history of Islam, it seems to me that disagreement has become the worst worm that ate our ummah alive. We're still alive as Muslims, but we have become so much in disagreement over the interpretation of Islam. Though Islam calls us to Tawheed, Islam calls us to Tawheed, the oneness of God, the oneness of Allah. The oneness of God also means there is oneness in the teachings. There must be oneness in the family of those who follow. There must be oneness in the source, in the beginning of it, and oneness in the destiny of it. Now, when we talk about God, when we talk about the oneness of the teachings, it is one, but many, made of many. But the many, however different, however diverse they are supposed to serve the one. Within that family, you have the male, you have the female, you have the father, you have the mother, you have the old, you have the young, you have the black, you have the white, you have the smart, you have the stupid, you have everything in between. You have the rich, you have the poor. No matter who you are and where you come from, you have to operate within that oneness of the human family. If we worship one God, whether we use this bridge, or this to come to God, we have to find a way for these bridges to work in a harmonious way. Am I clear? Not only that, the Quran reminds us in Surah Al-Anbiya, verse 92, that the most important thing in Islam, that this is your ummah, your community, your family, human family, and you have one God. This is the most important thing in Islam. So do not allow anything, no matter what it is, to separate you from one another, as long as you keep this alive. Don't be driven by agendas, by any teaching, whatever that teaching may be, small or big, if it takes you away from the focus on the one God. Very simple theology, very simple theology, that what matters is one God, one community. The different paths, the different ways, the different should not force you to leave this ummah and leave this oneness of God. Not only does the Quran say that, the Quran tells us in Surah Anfal, Ayah 46, be not divided. For if you are divided, فَتَفْشَلُوا وَتَذْهَبَ رِيحُكُمْ, you will fail, and your impact will vanish. So no community will have ever an impact on itself or on others if it is divided. Whether it's America, or the Arab world, Europe, or Russia, or the Middle East, the Jews, the Christians, or the Muslims, no community can have any impact on any human direction if it is divided. The husband and the wife, when they are not united, they cannot have impact on their children. Very simple. A nation that's divided amongst itself, within itself, cannot lead that nation forward. They will stay where they are. However, with all of this, the Quran reminds us to keep in mind looking at the big picture of one God, one community. Reminds us that people have different perceptions, different eyes, different ears, different brains, minds, and different hearts. What does this mean? People see things differently, hear things differently, analyze things differently, emotionalize in different ways, and therefore their perceptions are different. Actually, the Quran calls all of this diversity as one of the great mysteries of God. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ اخْتِلَافُ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ وَأَلْوَانِكُمْ. One of the great signs of God is that you have diverse colors and diverse tongues. So that the fact that you have easygoing people and stubborn people is natural. And that's the beauty of life. The fact that some people like it easy, some people like it difficult is natural. Some people look into the details, some people don't like to look into the details. Some are introverts, others are extroverts. It's very natural. But why? Because they complete one another. They meet here. And within that world, we need these two realities. In order for the world to exist. On the contrary, I mean, the Quran is quite very clear about the importance of diversity. Very important. The Quran declares diversity to be one of the most important ingredients for a successful community. Not a point of separation, but rather a point of uniting. The Quran says in Surah Hud, ayah 118 and 119, if God had willed, God would have made all of you of one community. God would have made all of you Shia, or all of you Sunni, or all of you Christians, or all of you Jews, or all of you Muslims. God would have made all of you women. My God, imagine. I'm sorry, Burhan, you are a woman, you know. Lord, I'm sorry, you are a man, you know. You know, I'm serious. Imagine a world of only men. My God, it's boring. Without women, I don't know how can this world function. Imagine if the world is only made of women and there are no men around to cause women some trouble. I'm serious. It's quite amazing. It's quite amazing. God wanted us to be different. وَلَا يَزَالُونَ مُخْتَلِفِينَ. The Quran declares, and they will continue to be different till the day of judgment. إِلَّا مَنْ رَحِمَ رَبُّكَ. Except those God caused to be otherwise. وَلِذَلِكَ خَلَقَهُمْ. And God created them in such a way, different, to be in need of one another. I know I hate numbers. I really do. Imagine if all the world is made of Yahya Hendi. There will be no good economy, no good budget stuff. The world will collapse. With Yahya Hendi, the world will collapse. Financially, it will collapse. So I need people who like numbers, who like mathematics, who like economics, and who likes to work with banks and with money, who love. I want people who adore, who smile when they touch money. We need these people. Okay? But only them, the world would be different, would be crazy, would go nuts. We have to have people who don't like money. Now what does this do? Now that people don't like money and don't like numbers, we need those who do. So now we come to their respect and please help me. Now they are my masters. Well, some of these people, many of them, don't like philosophy and religion. They come to me, I am their master now. You see where I'm coming from? Imagine if all the men of the world are in mechanic shops. Or if all of them have cars that never break down. If all of them are dentists only and we have no cardiologists. You see where I'm coming from? So this diversity allows us to balance each other out. And God, the verse says, He created you in such a way for a purpose. And therefore, take this diversity as a good thing to keep you together. This diversity helps you, helps me, helps us challenge ourselves in ways we don't need to challenge ourselves. If we all see the world in a conservative way, without having some liberals with us, to tell you, you're really going to the far right, and you're going to go to a cliff, come back. Imagine if we are all liberals going to the other side, without conservative kind of come back. That's where the balance comes in. I love the ayah in the Quran that says, وَلَوْلَا دَفْعُ اللَّهِ النَّاسَ بَعْضَهُمْ بِبَعْضٍ. It's an amazing verse that talks, it is God who puts people at odds with one another. What does that mean? Meaning to balance each other out. Some easygoing, some are not easygoing. Some who likes this, some who like this. Some to the far right, some to the far left. To balance each other out. Imagine if all of us are peacemakers and don't believe in carrying in self-defense. What will this do to the world? The criminals will take over and will create a big mess in the world. Isn't that true? So someone has to stand up and say, no guys, we need something called self-defense. What about the self-defense if it becomes too much to a point of where the other side has no freedom to do anything or say anything in life? You see where I'm coming from? They balance each other out. So when we're different, we think differently, we are forced to think differently and not take things for granted. So, you come say, Yahya, this verse in the Quran says 1, 2, 3. If I take you for granted all the time, and you take it for granted that I don't challenge you, you know what will you do? You will use the scripture, the Quran, abuse the Quran to abuse me. And this has happened. People who have used the Quran to abuse women. Without people standing to them saying, where are you going? Well, the Quran says we can beat up women, Really? Let's go back to that verse. If we surrender to one interpretation without the desire, the ability, and the power to stand up and say, maybe there's another interpretation, that interpretation becomes very abusive. With time, again, with time. So, when we challenge each other, we are forced to slow down, not take things for granted, and not allow abuse of the scripture. Very important. Again, as we move forward, again, remember our topic is about how we can agree to disagree without being disagreeable. I love the story of Prophet Muhammad, who spoke of a specific Sahabi, one of the companions of the Prophet. Sahaba is plural, Sahabi is singular. So the Prophet, as he was sitting with his Sahaba, his companions, he said, do you see that man? And the Sahaba, the companions, looked at that man. Oh, we don't know him. Well, maybe he comes into prayer and he leaves, he's not Mr. Man, he's not a congressman, he's not a senator, he's not a governor. No one knows really him. Except that he is someone who comes in and goes. The Prophet said, that man will be in paradise. Wow, really? Why? Why not me? I'm always with you. I pray 5 times a day and I pay zakah and I make dhikr meditation 20,000 times a day and I'm righteous. Why not me? Why him? So the Sahaba asked the Prophet, why him? The Prophet said, go and ask him. So who would do that? Ali is the greatest seeker of knowledge. A man who always was interested in knowledge. So he goes and sleeps with this man, sleeps in the house of this man. I know in Maryland we just passed, in Maryland, not me, I voted against it. He sits in the house of this man and watches him for the entire night. They sat down, they ate together, they spoke together, they went to sleep, everyone in his own mattress. The man did not do anything special. The next morning, the same thing. The end of the day, then another day, then another day. The same thing. Actually, Imam Ali did much more good stuff than this man. So Imam Ali said, come here. The Prophet said that you are one of those who will reside in paradise forever. What is it that you do that you think is so special? The man said, every night when I go to sleep, I cleanse my heart from any hatred it may have against any human being. So Imam Ali goes to the Prophet and says, this is what this man told me. Is that what it is? The Prophet said yes. Because his heart is clean from any hatred, any envy, any bad feeling against any other person, that's what will make him be from the residents of Jannah, of paradise. So when we disagree about budget, about law, about a fiqh interpretation in Islam, whatever it is, was Imam Ali supposed to be the Khalifa after the Prophet or not? Are we supposed to pray like this or like this? Should women cover their heads or not cover their heads? Whatever it is you disagree on, at the end of the day, when you go to sleep, say, oh Allah, oh God, I have in my heart nothing but love of every human being around me. Imagine if we go to sleep all as a nation, with the Muslims and non-Muslims thinking that way. It's the contrary. We go to sleep as Republicans, ready to move against Democrats the next day. And Democrats go to sleep, my God, what can we do to the Republicans the next day? And this is, they go to sleep thinking of evil, thinking of separation, quite interesting. No, we need to hold back. We need to hold back. If we focus on the question of Islam, don't be judgmental. Don't, just don't, please don't. You are in no position to declare Angela a resident of hell, or a resident of paradise. Saved or not saved, you don't know. You just don't know. Whatever it is, that the lens you use, the perception you have, your heart should be always clean. When we disagree, we could have different solutions for one problem instead of having one solution. Imagine if we have only one solution. What about if that plan A does not work? In the planning thing, what do you always tell you? Have a plan A, plan B, plan C, and a plan D. If A does not work, you have B. If B does not work, you have C. The same thing when we disagree, we can help each other have different perspectives, different solutions, different inputs into the problem that we're dealing with. The different disagreements we end up having as Muslims, sometimes the disagreement really is the outcome of misunderstanding of what the text is really trying to tell you. Sometimes it is the outcome of personal agendas. If I don't want to give zakah, money, to let's give a specific fiqh question, and Abdul Aziz might correct me or not. Now, this is, what's your name, sister again? Yara. Yara comes and says, Imam Hindi, I have $1,000 I want to give in zakah, not in sadaqah, in zakah, which is one of the 5 articles of pillars of Islam. And I want to give this money to my Christian neighbor who seems to be really poor. Can I do that or not? And if I happen to be not interested in the Christians, or in Jews, or in non-Muslims, I say, yeah, of course not. You only give it to the Muslims. What about, because my wife is a Christian, I like that money to go to my wife, I end up benefiting from it. I pay for my car. You see where Hawa comes in, this personal interest comes in sometimes? Before I answer here, I should say, let me go back to the text, to the Nas. What is the text telling me? Is the text allowing it or not allowing it? Instead of me making the judgment based on my own desires, I have to make an informed decision based on what the text itself says, not based on my own interest and my own desires and what it says and what they say. Am I clear about that? This is a big problem when we give fiqh answers or fatwas or statements about what Islam is or is not. It's always, believe me, about my desire and what I hope Islam would say. Again, what I want Islam to say. We might end up with two decisions, it's okay. But it should not be out of desire, but rather out of what the text is telling me. Two different methodologies. One out of hawa and desire, one out of the text telling me what I should or should not do. Two different methodologies. Actually, in this case, when we go back to the text and study what ulama, what scholars have historically said, some said, yes, of course you can give it to the Christian and the Jew. Some said, no, you can give the Jew and the Christian sadaqah money, charity money, but not from the 5 pillars of Islam, the zakah money. You can adopt either way, it's okay, it's okay. But don't be out of desire, but rather out of what the text is telling you. Give you specific examples about how culture also plays a role in this. In like the sub-Indian continent, you would not, in most cases, hear the people at the end of the Fatiha saying, Ameen, loud. Yes? Yes? You would not. So people who come from Bangladesh or India or Pakistan to America, and they pay behind an imam who is telling me have been in Palestine or Jordan or Egypt, and at the end of the Fatiha, Ameen. Is there spirits here? What's going on here? And I have heard the people say, my salam as a prayer is not accepted. Why? Because these Muslims, no, he's not different, you know, or he's different. These Muslims say Ameen at the end of the Fatiha. We back home, we don't. Who's that, who's wrong? We'll talk about it in a second. Or, people stand in Salah, at the beginning of Salah say, Allahu Akbar. I'm used to doing this in Saudi Arabia. And the Imam, or there's someone next to me, Allahu Akbar. Ah, come. Yeah. Yes, I'm going to make fun of you. Now, listen to this. And this really happens. Let's start Salah together. Okay. Pretend, you know? Yeah. It's okay. I know you don't care, but it's a pretend. Allahu Akbar. Again, he says, Allahu Akbar. It happens, by the way. It happens, yes. Now, I believe that people have to do this. He believes people have to do this. Now, for him, he wants my hand down. For me, I want his hand up. So now people, why? Because in their cultural background, they are used to doing this, yeah? And the other is used to doing this. Who is right, who is wrong? In your perception, you are right and they are wrong. Once, I was invited to read Salah in Hartford, Connecticut. And within like 2 seconds, are you from Hartford?
Well, like right next to it.
Within 2 seconds after I said, Allahu Akbar, something fell on my head. Like a big rock. My head started spinning. Believe me, I don't know how I prayed that evening. Anyway, I finished my prayer. put my hand on my head, and was a little goofy. Who did that? I did that. Why? Because your salah, your prayer, is not valid. What do you mean by that? You did not cover your head. Interesting. You see? No, because they prayed in a community where people have to cover their heads. And for him, he was worried that his salah, his prayer, may not be accepted. So he actually wanted to help me by breaking my head. You see where I'm coming from? You see where I'm coming from? Someone ended up in the hospital, and I'm making jokes, but these are real jokes. Huh? You know, in salah, when you sit down, you do this. Ashhadu anna la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna. In some schools of thought, you do this, and you stop. In some, you do this. In some, you do this, and you stay. So if someone comes from a school of thought where he does this, and the guy next to him, he broke his finger and ended up in the hospital. I'm serious, this is real stuff. This is real stuff. Now what to do? I think both men are wrong. The man whose finger was broken should have gone with the guy next to him. I'm not bothered, just do it, it's okay. But for him, no. I am right and you are wrong. No, I am right, you are wrong. You see where I'm coming from? It happens all the time. This is why in America, unfortunately, and it saddens me, sometimes we ended up with a Pakistani masjid, a Yemeni masjid, a Shia masjid, and a Sunni masjid. Why do we need to do that? You know why? Because we don't understand Islam. We just don't. We depend on our cultural packages or misunderstandings. So a Shia Muslim comes and does a Sunni masjid, and he takes his piece of stone and puts it on the floor. My God, how dare you do that? It's okay, it's okay, it's okay. This is the school of thought in that specific school of thought within Shia Islam. So the problem here is our misunderstanding of Islam, of the text, and the fact within the teachings of Islam, you can do all of this. You can pray like this. You can pray like this. You can pray like this. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's very okay. Don't make a big issue out of it. Ameen. Or no Ameen. You say Ameen. He does not say Ameen. It's okay. Both of you are okay. Don't make an issue out of it. That's what I mean. That's what I am saying. Now let's give you examples of how at the time of the Prophet, Sahaba dealt with, or the Prophet dealt with this. In so many cases, when the Sahaba, when the companions disagreed on a specific interpretation, they came back to the Prophet and said, "Oh Muhammad, we actually disagreed. What is the right answer?" And he often gave them the answer. A specific story I mentioned here. Once the Prophet said, "No one shall pray Asr, Salat al-Asr, the afternoon prayer, he directed his companions to go out from Medina to the tribe of Bani Qurayza. Okay? And he said, no one can pray Asr, the prayer, offer the prayer, except when you get to Bani Qurayza. So Sahaba started the journey. They left Medina on their way to Bani Qurayza. Now it is 4 p.m. It's time for Asr prayer. Oh my God. What should we do? Some companions said, the Prophet said literally, do not pray Asr till you get to Bani Qurayza. So I'm not going to pray. I will not break the Prophet's word. The other companion said, no, we're taking it too literally. He did not mean we should not. He just meant, don't go back and sit at home and sleep till tomorrow and start the trip tomorrow. He said, he meant to say, go right now, do not be delayed no matter what. So they said the Prophet did not mean that literally. He only meant to encourage us to take it seriously. You see the difference now? So what should happen? Sahaba could have killed each other or not that. But no, they were wonderful, educated, smart, intelligent people. They respected the fact that we have different ways by which we look into the text. Okay? So the group that took it literally said, okay, we will pray now, you guys wait for us. And these guys said, okay, you pray and we will wait for you. They prayed, moved on. They got here, they did their Asr prayer. The mission for which they were gone was ended. Now they came back to Medina a few days later. What do you think should have happened? Ask. Now we disagreed. Who was right and who was wrong? The literalists or those who were analytical? Let's take it from the horse mouth. The Prophet. Oh, Prophet, we have disagreed on what you said, and some of us have prayed this way and some prayed that way. Imagine you in that position. You would hope that the Prophet would say, you are right, they are wrong. Isn't that true? It's natural. You want to be told you are right. It's natural. My opinion is right. What did the Prophet say? Both of you are right. Why? Both did the best to do the best, had different interpretation and different understanding of the text. As long as the text can be interpreted in two ways, again I say that again, as long as the text can be interpreted in two ways and hold within its language the ability of being interpreted in two ways, then both are right. End of the story, let's go home. Very simple. You disagree, it's okay. Let's find a solution. And if we have no solution of one being right, one being wrong, it's okay. Let's move on. I have to mention the story, maybe some of you may not like it. This is narrated by Abu Dawood actually. Once there was a big, cold night. Big, cold night. And this wonderful Sahabi, companion, had what is called a wet dream. Don't ask me to interpret that for you. You don't know yet. You need to grow up. Okay, a wet dream. So Islam teaches, if you had a wet dream, you have to wash up. You have to shower completely before you pray. Interesting. It's a cold night, and this Sahabi, this companion, when he woke up from sleeping, he had to pray. He prayed with tayammum. You know what tayammum is for Muslims? You don't use wudu, you use dust to prepare yourself for salah. He went and made tayammum, though the water was there. And he went and led people in salah. Some companions said, how dare you do that? There was water around. You could have done it. And you are a liberal, a progressive, Americanized guy. You could have just done it and shown that you are a Muslim. You are willing to put yourself in hardship for Islam. The Prophet, the man said, listen to how the man answered the question. When the case came to the Prophet, The Prophet said, oh Amr, what did you do? Amr said, in the Quran, listen to this. I found a verse in Surah Nisa, ayah 29, that said, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. And do not kill yourselves. And I thought in a cold night, with cold water, they did not have heaters then, I promise you. In Arabia, 1400 years ago, they did not have that. And he said, if I had showered with the cold water, I was afraid that I may end up with a cold or getting sick. And I thought God would not like that. So I said, let me prepare myself for dust, not with water. What did the Prophet ﷺ say? He actually laughed, smiled, and said, just like that. Which means, good job, bravo Zulu. Good way of thinking. Now, were the other Sahaba wrong? No. Their interpretation was, if the water is there, you have to do it with water. His interpretation was, well, the Quran says don't kill yourselves, it might end up harming me. See how he used his mind? The first school wanted to be literalist. The other wanted to be analytical, meaning understand the spirit of the text and not the text. Read in between the lines and not the lines. You see the difference here? Now, many of us, Muslims, are literalists when we don't know that we are. We read the verse, we read the hadith, it says that. Wait a minute. Can we do some analytical study of the text? This is quite a story. I am told that the coffee is here. Let's take 5 minutes break, get coffee, release something from you if you want to go to the bathroom, and come back in 7 minutes, 7 minutes. And don't take that analytically, take that literally. Come back in 7 minutes. There existed a discipline called ta'wil. The idea of ta'wil is an attempt by experts to make sense of the text, to interpret the text, using different methods, especially language, and allow that language to inform how you understand the text, especially because of these references in the Quran or certain nouns. And the ulama said, well, what is this noun really referring to? Give us specific examples. An ayah in the Quran that says, وَعَلَامَاتٍ وَبِالنَّجْمِ هُمْ يَهْتَدُونَ. It talks about signs, and by the star that guides them. Najm, star. Some said, well, we have to take this verse literally. The star here refers to the star. Because in Arabian astronomy and traveling tools, they used the stars to guide them to go right, left, north, or south. They knew the stars, and by the stars they knew where west and north was. Some said, no, the word najm here, star refers to Muhammad. It means, and by Muhammad, who guides them. Interesting. What is the truth? The literal truth? That najm here means actually najm, star? What najm is? Or is it possible it may be referring to Muhammad, who guides Muslims to God? What is right? What is wrong? And the question is there an absolute right? So can Jumana force me to say, no, this refers to Muhammad, that's it? Or I'm going to say, no, this refers to the star, the actual star. What is right, what is wrong? Is there right? Do we need to take a position? You see where I'm coming from? At the end of the day, ulama said, well, if it does not lead to a practical, real, lively matter, it's okay, you can debate it. عما يتساءلون, the very well-known ayah, عن النبأ العظيم. In Sunni literature of interpretation, النبأ العظيم is what? Is the Quran. And indeed, about which they ask, the great news, the Quran. In some Shia interpretation of النبأ العظيم, it's Muhammad. عما يتساءلون, about which are they asking you? Or about whom? They're asking you concerning the great news that ever came to Arabia, Muhammad. Have you heard that, Sahel? Have you heard this interpretation before?
Not that.
No. But you see where people come? What would make a scholar in the Shia tradition understand Nabi al-Azim to refer to Muhammad? This is called ta'wil, a human attempt to make sense of the text. At the end of the day, within the Shia tradition, you have also people who differ. No, you know, we are really overdoing our love of Ahlul Bayt and of Muhammad. This really means the Quran. You see where I'm coming from? That's called ta'wil. And that has created differences within the Muslim community and the Muslim Ummah. Now, when we do ta'wil, when we do this analytical attempt to understand the terms and the nouns, the specific things we have to keep in mind. Number one, what is the context in which that verse comes? So what does the verse before that say and the verse after that say? It will help you understand. Number two, the language. What is the language saying to us? Meaning, what is the noun, the pronoun? What is the pronoun referring to? The pronoun al-damir referring to? Is it possible that this might be referring to God, Muhammad, or what? There's a verse in the Quran that talks about وَإِنِّي and I shall cause him to mutawaffika. 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 Mutawaffika, if you ask the Arabs in the gathering here, what does mutawaffika mean? Those who really know Arabic. Yes?
It has two possibilities.
Two possibilities. Okay, you are the smart man here. I was looking for a less smart person. Okay, what are the two interpretations? Good, no, good.
Reality or to die?
Sorry? المجاز ولا الأصل؟ أوكي. أعطيني اللي بدك إياه.
Reality, I think in English, and the other one is to die.
To what?
To die.
To die, and the other one?
Reality.
Reality?
Loyalty.
Royalty.
Yeah.
Loyalty. Okay, loyalty. Okay, what do you think?
To die.
To die? Mm-hmm. Abdulaziz. I'm sure you studied this back in college. Mutawaffika, to die. You see here, so if you read that ayah, mutawaffika, ka is a pronoun. It's damir, maf'ul bihi, it's an object of the sentence. So is God saying, I will or Jesus cause you to die? Well, does this mean Jesus died? So is God talking about Jesus who will die at the end of time? Okay? Or is it talking about Jesus who has already died? You see? So now Christian-Muslim dialogue. Did Jesus die or did not die? Does that have to do with the cross or not the cross? Did he die on the cross? Did he not die on the cross? You see where I'm coming from? What does this mutawaffika mean? Well, now we are in the presence of a big verse that could make it or break it for a Christian-Muslim relations. Do you see where I'm coming from? So you have Muslims who want to prove to Christians that Jesus did not die. And you Christians are just heretics. And you Christians who want to prove to Muslims, no, you are heretics. Jesus did die and was resurrected. So what do we do with this text? Now, as our brother said, what are meanings to that word mutawaffika? It may mean to die. Okay? That's with the right dye, yeah? I thought I'm wrong. You're looking at me with like, what's going on? I know, okay. And I will cause you. Or does mutawafika talk about now? So is it past tense or present tense? Or future, sorry. You see where I'm coming from? Okay, let's say that Jesus, this means Jesus, it gives Jesus death. So Jesus actually died or will die. Now those who said Jesus will die, said he will die after he comes back, after his return, he will die, but he has yet to die. Interesting. Christians who are sitting in their room. This is different from what you used to hear. Well, okay. So Jesus has yet to die, but will die in the future. Some Muslims, guys, you know, you're really taking it too far. Mutawafika here means مثل وفاء, وفي, meaning you are so loyal to me. You keep your word to me. So God is speaking to Jesus, saying, I will keep my word and the promise to you. It has nothing to do with death. Those who interpret the word mutawafika to mean death caused us a theological breakthrough, to break down a relationship between Christianity and Islam. Those who interpreted it to mean I will keep my promise and always be loyal to you, O Jesus, actually brought the Christians and Muslims together. So what do we do? This is what we call ta'wil within the Nas. Well, okay. So how do we deal with this now problem that we're up to? So the ulama would say, the scholars would say, okay, this is one verse. Is there any other verse that deals with this subject? So now you have a verse from the Quran that seems to be giving us two different answers, possible answers. One die, one loyalty. Then another verse in the Quran says, they have neither killed him nor crucified him. They have neither killed him nor crucified him. So this other verse says Jesus was not killed and was not crucified. What does this mean? What do you think? You will tell me? The verse says he was neither killed nor crucified. What do you think? Anyone will tell me something? That he's alive? Okay. Now I'm getting really confused now. It means that he's still alive, yes? Not necessarily. Why?
Well, if he didn't die on the cross, maybe he just died a natural death.
Exactly! Exactly what Imam Zamakhshari says. Imam Zamakhshari says, this is a verse that's describing the crucifixion narrative. It's not talking about the rest of the life of Jesus. That he is possibly, he may have died actually, but was not crucified in the way Christians attribute the crucifixion to him. This is the interpretation of Mahmoud Ayoub, the very well-known Lebanese scholar, who wrote a book, 300 pages on this subject. You see? So what do we do with all of this stuff? Unfortunately, when Mahmoud Ayoub published his book, with a Shia scholar from Lebanon, teaches at Hartford Seminary, an amazing scholar. They crucified him, not literally, metaphorically. They went after him. How dare you say Jesus may have died? Why? Because in a traditional Sunni world, we say Jesus did not die, period. You see where I'm coming from? Who's right and who's wrong? The question is, do we need to have the answer to who is right and who is wrong? We know for sure that the Quran says that Jesus was not crucified. No one within the science of ta'wil would misinterpret this verse because linguistically it cannot have two meanings to it. But mutawaffika would have so many meanings to it. Well, let's take this mutawaffika again. We're not finished yet. What is the context? Where does the promise of God comes to Jesus? The word mutawaffika. It comes to Jesus according to the Quran in the very first few days after his birth. And if you look at that verse, now when you go home, not now, in details, the Quran is describing the miracles of Jesus and the greatness of Jesus in a beautiful ways. In contrast to John the Baptist, to Yahya. And what happened to John the Baptist in both Islam and Christianity? What happened? He was killed, he was beheaded. Very violent death. You have the story of John the Baptist in the Quran, then immediately the story of Jesus. Baptist, John, Yahya, whatever you want to call him, had a very terrible end and death. So what is God telling Jesus? Not only are you, Jesus, a sign of mercy, I will always keep you from any harm that may come to you. This is not my theology, meaning I interpret it in my own way, saying that mutawaffika means I will always be loyal to you, O Jesus. I will keep my promise to you. No harm will ever come to you. So it's a divine promise for the beautiful Jesus. So I say, well, I have no problem with Mahmoud Ayyub's theology, that he may have died. I have no problem with that. But for me, mutawaffika here, because of the context, where it is placed, where the verse is placed. The verse that comes before it, the verse that comes after it. The whole context, for me, is a context of divine love for Jesus. Enough for God to say, I embrace you, O Jesus. Enough to not allow any harm to come to you. So I will keep my promise. This is why you read hadith sahih, that on the night of the crucifixion, when there was a crucifixion that was supposed to happen, Jesus called up unto God, O my Lord and the Lord of my people, when my people have forsaken me, my Lord and the Lord of my people forsake me not. Give me not to the hands of my enemies, for they will cause me much pain. Interesting. A wonderful prayer that Jesus would naturally make. If you know Jesus and study Jesus, he was always in touch with God. Okay? So the hadith would say then that God sent the angel Gabriel down to earth, put Jesus on his wing, and took Jesus up to heavens alive. where Jesus has not died. Interesting. So I have no problem with that theology of Mahmoud Ayyub and Imam Zamakhshari. If we don't take that hadith, so to bring the hadith into the equation here, you have a new theology. You see where I'm coming from? Now, listen to me carefully, please. Because you have a specific result, a specific conclusion that Jesus may have died, according to the verse. But when you bring the hadith in of Jibreel, you would have to say, no, he did not die. Because the hadith says he took Jesus up to heaven's alive. Are you with me? So who's going to hell and who's going to paradise with these interpretations? What I'm saying is, you see the language? You see the importance of hadith? And how it will and it will not. So, go over the coming 10 pages. What I'm saying to you, and listen to me very carefully, please. The Prophet died. And Sahaba dispersed all over. They ended up in Iraq. They ended up in Asham and Damascus. They ended up in North Africa. They ended up in Pakistan. Many stayed in Medina. And every Sahabi who traveled took with him a collection of hadiths that he memorized. Listen to me very carefully. And over the course of 200 years, they narrated those hadiths. So, the Prophet said something. He said something here. This hadith. And this Sahabi took that hadith, gave it to the Tabi'i, gave it to the Tabi'i of Tabi'i, came to, let's say, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. And you have another hadith, something the Prophet said, went all the way to Damascus. Now these people did not meet with these people. So the people of Iraq did not meet much with the people of Asham. Seldomly met with the people who stayed in Medina. So if you study fiqh, what does this mean in history? We had in history what's called Ahlul Medina, Fuqaha, fiqh Ahlul Medina like Imam Malik and Imam Ahmad. And we had after that Imam Shafi'i, who took from the people of Medina something, but he happens to come from Palestine, from Gaza, by the way, Imam Shafi'i. Okay? So he never had much connection with the people of Iraq. This is why when you read the collection of Imam Shafi'i, that Imam Shafi'i depended on in his fiqh, it's different from the collection of Imam Ahmad or Imam Abu Hanifa. You see where I'm coming from? What does this mean? The collection is different. The data they had available is different. And that data determined how they interpret the text, the Quran. And it's also determined how they make fiqh.